Hello and welcome to Devils United. Obviously, you're joined by me and Chloe tonight. Maisie's having a night off, which is obviously well deserved anyway. Chloe, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to doing this review for Chelsea. Gutted I've been at the game yesterday due to working, but caught up on it today.
Yeah, I was there. I drove it all 500 odd miles in the end. It was, it was interesting, and we'll get into it. But obviously, I think my reaction initially at the game was quite different from people that I really heavily respect. Reaction away from, who weren't actually at the game. So it was interesting the effect of sort of the sort of cauldron atmosphere that was there. I mean, we were in an away end, or basically a pit, essentially, which actually is kind of cool. It made quite a lot of noise. We made quite a lot of noise there. But the only issue was that a lot of people that were shorter than me couldn't see. So you're probably good you weren't there, because I don't think you would have actually seen much of the pitch. But it was, it was one of those. I suppose the first thing to start with, it was a loss, obviously 1-0, goal by Sam Kerr, which I initially thought was quite controversial. But I can tell you a bit about that when I ask you about your thoughts anyway.
Well, watching it back, like I said, obviously me not being there, I couldn't see it live, so I watched it back today, and she was clearly offside. So how the assistant ref didn't see it is beyond me. She was offside. It shouldn't have counted, but it's one of them. We don't have VAR. We don't have that technology in the men like we do in the men's game. So this is where it is needed in terms of offside stuff and penalties and stuff like that, which we'll probably which we will touch on in this podcast. But yeah, I think the goal was offside in terms of how it was played. But yeah, cracking finish by Sam Kerr as always, and definitely a goal of the season contender.
It's funny because you're the only person I've spoken to since who wasn't there, who's seen the replay, who says it's offside. Now I agree live. I agree, because I was literally online with the liner when the ball was played, and the liner, as usual, wasn't in line with the player, but it looked miles offside. Now I did see the replay, because it's quite cool. We kind of have, if anyone's never been to a game, we kind of have this sort of, we sort of talk about, like, rudimentary VAR, where we all sort of huddle around like the mobile, and it looked like the two centre back players that played her on. But I think if it was onside, that it was almost like VAR onside. So essentially, she guessed. All right, she guessed right if that was the case. But I also know that a lot of people were quite happily and quite silently making their decision and not mentioning the fact that Kings Meadow is a shithole, and you only got a camera that's in line. So the replay camera was sort of at a weird diagonal. And in reality, that's because it was on like a rudimentary scaffolding above the stand behind the goal, because I literally saw it. And apart from that, there's sort of one other camera, and that's it. And rightly, United's been criticised previously for its lack of investment in the women's game, but like, because Chelsea's been there since the get-go, they seem to get a lot of free passes on certain things that I think, needs to be mentioned. Champions of England, great. Well, why are you at Kings Meadow, which is pretty shit, to be honest?
Yeah. I think
go on.
I did see, like, in terms of like the highlights part of it, not in the match, where, like you said, it looked like she was being played onside. So that for me is where VAR is needed, because in the men's game, a hand, an elbow, a foot, a toe are offside. Yeah. So if she had one line, if she had her hand or her shoulder or a bit of her foot over that line, she would have been classed as offside. So for me, even if we just get it through offsides, I think that's even better. If we get it for offsides and penalties for VAR, if that's the only aspect we can have in the women's game, then I think we should, just to trial it. But because you are losing games on stupid decisions like that, on unfair decisions, and I think for me, watching it back and then watching parts of the highlights as well, you can clearly see the angles, like you were saying, how the cameras look.
Yeah.
And I think for me, if we had VAR, that would have been given as an offside, and it wouldn't have stood.
I even think VAR.
It depends on how the line is drawn, in terms of where Turner and Letitia was stood, and where Kerr was when the ball was passed to her from Jane.
I mean, to be honest, right? Obviously, I know I can say some funny shit on these podcasts, but I promise you, this is what happened. I actually, you'll notice if anyone does follow me at AJ_87, I very, very rarely delete a tweet, but I did delete my initial response to the offside, because we were literally screaming. I would say 400 of us or whatever was there, was literally going absolutely mad at this lino, who I'm assuming she'll be 18, because you must have to be at that level, but she's not. I very much doubt she's older than Maisie, for example. We're just sort of screaming at her, like proper, like full on eyes bulging, screaming at her, like, what the hell did you miss that for? And and it wasn't really, it was a little bit more than the sort of like, you don't know what you're doing kind of pantomime chants that we did. It was like, but some of the like other people, I won't name them here, but like some of the sort of more established, even female fans were like, one of the mothers of a very loud fan was like, how much did she pay you? How much did Chelsea pay you off? It really went absolutely mental at her. And it was funny, because it was only when Susie is obviously a friend from Singapore who's online, she saw my tweet, which was something on the lines of, the liner looks like a child, and we need to do better than that, and and better referees and all this kind of stuff. And she was like, yeah, but it's onside. And I was like, yeah, but no, it can't be. It's just miles offside. And she's like, no, Millie plays her on. And I was like, what? So it was a weird experience to have that sort of like in the moment, right, anger kind of moment, and also like the sort of more away from the sort of pitch, like where you can watch it on TV and be slightly less emotional on it. But it was interesting. And obviously, just jumping in a little bit on the comments, obviously, Reese, good to see you, my friend. Yeah, I mean, it's funny that, because for us it was obvious, like that's what we all screamed for. That's offside, like straight away. Because where the United fans were, we were pretty much in line with the ref, sorry, with the assistant referee, just over the halfway line on that side. So we were literally, and I was literally pretty much right on there. And yeah, Chloe can tell you as well, as much as I take the mickey out of referees, I do seem to find myself a bit of a budding one, because I get quite lucky. I'll say lucky on here, but I didn't use lucky at the time, where I'm like 7 miles away and I go, that's a penalty and it's given, or that's a foul, because I can sort of see it. But it was one of them. But I think, yeah, I mean, my initial reaction for the game as a whole, maybe we'll start there, maybe, was that initially we were quite angry at the end of the game. Skinner actually, we were annoyed with his decision making mainly. Now we have got 2 penalty decisions that we will go on to. I'm sort of jumping a little bit out of order here, but the first concern of ours was that we desperately needed a goal, and he put on a centre back. Not even a centre back that can like play other places. Now, I believe Hannah Blundell did move position, and she was the one who moved. But it felt, and I said to one of the loudest fans that was next to me, I said, that stinks to me. Like I want to keep it at 1-0. What was your thought when Manu came on?
I think for me, he was trying to keep it at 1-0. Because he could see Chelsea pushing forward. But I also saw that he pushed Hannah and Honor forward. So he knows Honor can get into positions. He knows Honor can get up front. So he was trying to push Honor up for me, trying to push Hannah up more into into the wings, and going through at the back. I don't think he should have done. I don't think he should have done that. We don't know what goes through Skinner's or Martin Hull's heads in terms of what tactics they use.
Well, there's an interesting anecdote that I can give you a little insight to that, because one of the loudest friends of ours had a little chat to Skinner, and Charlotte Healy responded. So I'll let you finish your point, and I'll tell you what Charlotte Healy said.
Oh, no, go ahead if you want.
So basically, I think that's interesting in itself, actually, as a side point. I didn't realize until I said it that obviously Charlotte Healy is involved in the first team, but is primarily the devs coach. And we always kind of assumed that was to settle down the younger players. But I suppose for her to respond back to, it wasn't really a heckle. She wasn't saying Skinny or shit. It was like, I think what she actually said was, subs, boss, subs. What's going on? Centre back, win the game. And he just ignored her after the interview. And Charlotte Healy turned around and said, we had 7 strikers on the pitch at that point. What else did you want? And they all walked off. I think we always realised that there weren't 7 strikers on the pitch. But what do you think that gives you an idea into the mentality? So they obviously thought it was quite aggressive already on the pitch.
Yeah, I think you couldn't put anyone else on the pitch to go up front. You didn't have Leon You didn't have Leon there. You didn't have Torres Dottir there. Torres Dottir is a centre back. You were going to put another centre back on. You can't. We didn't have Leon on the bench. We already put Lucia on, but a little too late. Yeah, we could have put Bo Risa on, but that's taken another midfielder off or another forward off. So again, you'd still have however many they said. So for me, it's one of them that you already used Rachel Williams, you already used Martha Harris. The only player you didn't use was Bo Risa or Casarino or Lisa.
Yeah.
But them 3 are midfielders. We don't have any other strikers apart from Martha Russo and Thomas. Russo and Williams. They're the 3 that we only have.
And to be honest, she played not Williams. I'll get onto it at some point. But to be honest, I've been pretty critical of Thomas. And actually, to be honest, I shouldn't say this, but it happened. I was the only person who could remember where we were about the subs because of the way the pit was. Because everyone was a little bit. There was a lot of Reds there, maybe that were from London that were not like aware of the travelling fans, and there really wasn't much. Well, you're a bit shorter, you can get in front of me. I'm a bit taller, I can stand behind you. So unfortunately, a lot of people couldn't see much on the other side of the pitch. So I could see, because we sort of, if you think of sort of like, if you think of the pitch sort of goal to goal, sort of looking sort of vertical, you had the United fan pit area, so to speak, is from the halfway line to the sort of bottom left-hand corner. And the subs bench was after us, going towards the top left-hand corner on the left-hand side. So I could see the subs, and I was one of the only people who could, because I'm tall. And it was quite funny, because when I started announcing the subs, there was like a loud groan. When we were like, yeah, Martha Thomas is coming on. They were like, oh, God. Okay, then. That was the London fans. But to be fair, she did all right. She was quite like aggressive. She didn't really provide much of a threat, but I think generally as a team we didn't, did we, yesterday?
No, we didn't. The thing is Russo didn't have her best game.
No.
I don't think. Tuna, again, didn't have a best game. And then you bring on Lucia Garcia too little too late. And really, you should have brought her on at the same time you brought on Martha Thomas.
Yeah.
Took Russo off for Rachel Williams. And then you could have, instead of taking Hayley Ladd off for Mannion, should have took Hayley Ladd off for Bo Risa or for Lisa or Casarino. You didn't need to put Mannion on. You didn't need to do that. And for me, that's the frustrating part. That is the frustrating bit. You didn't need to put Mannion on. And if you were putting Mannion on, take off a centre-back. take off Miller, take off Meyer. Like Letitia, don't take off a defensive midfielder. I didn't get why he was doing that. So for me, I think when Martha came on, she was playing brilliant. She played brilliant. In what I watched, but Paris had an excellent game in my eyes. She was probably one of the best players on the pitch, because she was getting the ball in, she was getting the ball, she was getting into the box, and yeah, she should have had a penalty. She should have, and
yeah.
Obviously 2 penalty decisions that went against us. One with Paris, who I think it was definitely a penalty. I've seen highlights on Twitter with Ref Watch.
I saw that, yeah.
And the referee who was doing it said it was a blatant foul. It was missed. It should have been.
But she couldn't see because her view was.
No, this one she could see.
Oh, right. I'm talking about the Paris clip where she got in a heels clip.
This one should have been a penalty. The Paris one should have been a penalty. The Buchanan one should have been a penalty, but she couldn't see it. And so we missed 2. The referee missed 2 penalty decisions for us, which we should have had. That would have changed the game. Yeah. And to watch referee watch, and if you've never watched it, please do, because they look over the weekend's fixtures and midweek fixtures of both the WSL and the Premier League and Championship. They look over the whole lot and show you what mistakes they have done, what mistakes the referee's done. So if you've not watched it, do give it a watch, and it is interesting, especially if you have a dislike to VAR and refs, because you'll get annoyed even more. And you'll end up screaming at the TV going, I knew that. Why is this referee refereeing? And
yeah,
it's one of them that if that referee can't see blatant fouls, why are they refereeing? Because
let's put a bit of meat on the bone on that. So, and I'll just pick on Reese's point as well. We've kind of picked up on it as we've been discussing it. I mean, I can imagine Maisie's voice being quite fiery over it. I was there, so I didn't see the watch along. I don't know. I mean, if a Man United manager makes the decision to keep a defeat to 1-0, he shouldn't be a Man United manager, men, women, or whatever. It shouldn't happen. I mean, the obvious change for me would be, at the very least, and this still has problems, is got Man United when Garcia came on, and Garcia come on when Man U came on with 10 to go. What Leon has done to Skinner, because I think it's blindingly obvious now that what something's happened. It's utter bullshit. But it's a competitive team, unless your name's Katie Zellum. Oh, sorry. It's a competitive team, and Leon's an Olympic gold medalist. She's obviously either challenged him in training, called him out on something, and she's getting punished, or which we'd never know, obviously. But the idea that suddenly, she's not even good enough to be on the bench, I just don't believe it. I just think there's definitely something else going on there.
Who would you not put on the bench for Leon, though?
Too many defenders. I need to remember who was on the bench.
You only had Mannion and Forrest Dottier on bench.
Well, the bench is quite full. I might bring that up and have a look, actually.
Bagley, Forrest Dottier, Mannion, Borisa, Casanero, Lisa, Williams, Leon, Garcia, and Martha Thomas. They're the players you had on. So Tunkara didn't it, and neither did Leon.
Yeah, what's going on there? She's left. She's also lost her French place because of it as well. I'm just going to bring it up as well.
For me, in terms of substitutes, Mark's probably picked the competitive side of it, and for me, it's one of them that it seems competitive, but Leon should be in that. She should be, but who do you drop? Because you're going to have to drop another player when Jade Riviera comes into the squad.
Yeah, but we'll get that bridge when we come to it. I'd probably say 4, to be honest.
But that's the problem. You're gonna have it. You're dropping 2 players for 2 players that are coming into the squad, and it's what 2 players do you drop to bring in Leon, or to bring in Giancarlo, or to bring in Casemiro or Lisa? What 2 players do you drop? You have to pick. You have to pick the 2, and it's not. It's to us. It's not the best decision because Leon should have been on that bench. She should have been, but she wasn't, and we don't know why. We never will know why. But it's one of them that it's hard to see after she's been on the bench so many times. And we just hope that, for me, I think she's going to start in the FA Cup game. And if she doesn't, I'll be surprised. If Leon doesn't start in the FA Cup match, I'll be very surprised.
I would say, let's look at it a different way, right? Obviously, football fan, but I'm getting better on tactics, but it isn't what naturally comes back to me. So I'll take it what I work in like sort of risk management situation. How often, touch wood, do we have an issue with our defenders where you need more than 1 or 2 defenders changing? Quite rare, I would say. So you think about subs being tactical, but also obviously about covering yourself, essentially providing cover. I think you could afford to drop one of the defenders from Marie Torres-Dottier would be the obvious one because she's just nowhere near the team. She's not coming on off the subs bench. And put in your Riviere, well, Riviera's a defender, but put in your, in this case, look, taking it a game by a time, as Skinner says, put in Leon as a, but then I'd also take the point that would leave us with 2 winger covers, 2 midfield, a goalkeeper, and two forwards in inverted commas on the pitch, in the subs even. But I just, for me, it's just, I suppose it's like you kind of know when you're being lied to, and for him to sit there and say, "Oh, it's a very competitive team and she's just not cutting the mustard," it's utter bollocks. Now, maybe you could argue, well, you can't really say anything else. You can't say, "I can't stand her and I'm not going to pick her ever again," and he can't say, so he has to come up with some sort of narrative. But it's almost like when he gets interviewed about Villa Benarisa as well, and he says, "Me and Vilda have a great relationship." And, he kind of says it so many times. It's kind of like you kind of protesting a little bit too much. Like, I don't think they have a great relationship. I'm not saying they necessarily have a problem with each other, but they're certainly not to the level of Zella. I mean, obviously, picking that up on here, Reese jumping in as well, saying it's going to wasn't favouring certain players, a team would be better. It's a difficult one because I was proper negative. I mean, Chloe kind of left me alone a little bit. I had to drive back anyway yesterday because I was ready to have a little fight, to be honest, at the end of the game. But, there is a point that a very dear friend of mine made, which was, that we play with no fear. And we kind of did in a way because we didn't look like a bunch of little girls, scared of Chelsea. We kind of did neutralize them a little bit. It was one piece of magic of Sam Kerr. There was a massive mistake off Zelen where she basically passed the ball to, I think it might have also been Sam Kerr in the second half, and we got lucky and Mary kept us in it. But fundamentally, it did look like if you just landed from a different planet, it did look like a top 3 teams playing each other, top of the table clash. It didn't look like there's United holding their breath thinking, "Oh my God, we're playing Chelsea." Like we've discussed in the past about our teams when they play Barcelona or lower in La Liga Femenino. "Oh God, I'm playing Barcelona," and they get psychologically gone before they're even on the pitch. I mean, so I am starting to turn a little bit more and say, well, actually, we played better than we did, but I just can't get over Skinner's decision making.
Yeah, I see, and I know where you're coming from, and for me, I think in certain games he makes good decisions, but in other games it frustrates us as fans because he brings on players that we need at such little time. Like for Lucia, she came on for 2 minutes yesterday. She should have come on when when Andy said 10, 15 minutes beforehand to give us that pace on the wing. In 2 minutes, you can't do anything. So it's one of them that you can make the best decisions, in certain games, and then decisions aren't the best in others. Decisions on substitutes, again, good substitutes in some games. Others, it's questionable. Like what we said, Mannion. Why did he need to bring Mannion on when he had Borvisa or Casanero or Lisa on the bench? He could have brought them on, but he didn't. He was going more defensive as time was going on, so that it would only be a 1-0 goal, a 1-0 difference in terms of the winning margin, because he knows how much goal difference will impact on the winning, on who wins the league, who gets into that Champions League spots. Because at the end of the day, City are now the same points as us.
Yeah.
They're only third because we've got more goal difference. We have the most goal difference in the league, and that says something. We have more goal difference than City, more than Arsenal, and more than Chelsea. That to us says a lot. We can score goals. It's just we can't score them when we need it. And for us, we could have finished that game yesterday. We could have scored that in yesterday's game. We could have come away with a point. We just couldn't finish. We didn't have the players on. And like I was saying, I think for me, Paris was our best player on the pitch yesterday, because she was getting the ball into the box and she was getting to where we needed. Closely followed by Honor and Hannah for me.
Yeah.
Because, again, they were doing everything on the wings. They were doing everything, getting crucial crosses in. They were blocking tackles. They're doing everything that they were required to do, but then were pushed forward for us to go into a 3-5-2 in the 15 minutes before the end, which we didn't need. We needed to stick to having 4 at the back, 2 in defensive mid, 3 in middle, 1 up top. That's what we needed, or 4-4-2. So for me, we need to see. It'll be interesting to see what team he'll do against Lewes on Sunday. It'll be interesting, because will he go all out and play his best 11, knowing it's a championship team, or will he go all out and play some of his top players and then put on like Leon, Borvisa, players that haven't had much game time, and give Tuna, Russo a rest? Because that's going to be interesting to see, and it'll probably make us think, why didn't you bring them on then? Is this why? Is this why they're arrested? Because you want them to play the full 90 against Lewes?
You can't rest anyone. You can't rest anyone against Chelsea. I mean, come on. I mean, at the end of the day, it depends what he wants. And I mean, it's definitely a view. I mean, I agree with a lot of the points that you're making. Just to circle back a little bit, question from Ravi. Did you feel I think you sort of say, how did you feel before you saw the lineup? United not have a great game against Chelsea. To be honest, the lineup now, I mean, there's a vast amount of the team who don't listen to Skinner's of the fan base that we're with, who don't listen to Skinner's press conference, irrespective of what the game is. And we will check the lineup, but we kind of don't really expect any changes. So we didn't really think about it too much. The main thing that was we were walking to the ground that we sort of referred to was no Leon even on the bench. That was the main surprise for us. What about you?
I only quickly gandered due to me being at work, but I was like, why is there no Leon on bench? What, like, has she got an injury in like the days after his press conference that he had, or has she just like not, has she got woken up and not well? Because again, we never know this, because we never know how many days prior to the game the press conferences for Mark and for WSL managers. We don't know how far in advance they do them. So she could have picked up an injury. She could have just had a sickness bug, and that's why. But again, we never get told any of this.
One of the things that I noticed as well, that actually, now I'm part of this to an extent, because I really quite dislike Skinner now quite a lot, is it is an interesting situation at the minute, and something's going to have to give, because I would say out of the match-going fan base, and certainly possibly online, there's quite a lot of people, and I'm not going to use this word lightly, who hate the guy. I mean, absolutely hate the guy, and I might have used it occasionally, but typically people like you and others bring me back and remind me that's a strong word. So I would probably just say I just dislike the guy. I dislike his management style, and I think he's been over promoted and he's above where he should be in life. But like, there's a lot of people that hate him, like Hate Skinner, and there's a lot of people that don't like Zellum, and it is a worry because it's starting to become pretty obvious on the sideline. Because it happened a little bit last game, but also at Chelsea, some of our chants weren't in sync because the group that didn't like Skinner were starting their own ones, and the group that did like Skinner were doing the opposite or not carrying it on. And and at the end, normally what would happen is that Skinner comes over and they chant the sort of Mark Skinner, Barmy Army, and he does his little clip clap and his little kisses and all this kind of stuff. And this is what makes me think that I think he knows now that actually the fan base is mixed at the very best, turning at the very worst. Because yes, he kind of came over, but it was a little bit like a couple of seconds and ran away because he knew that he's disliked. But then I speak to people who don't follow the game, just generally know I like women's football, and they were like, "But well, not now anymore, but yesterday, but you're top of the league. How can you hate the manager?" And I don't know. I mean, it's kind of just there's not really a question there. It's just sort of like thinking out loud that it's become so obvious. Skinner knows now. I think he's disliked by a certain section of the fans. We don't really like our captain. I mean, I hope we bloody get higher than fourth because I think we're gonna have a problem otherwise. There's a lot of unhappy people. I mean, there was the chant about is meant to be Skinner's playing the way that United should multiple times, and I'll be honest, I also joined in. People were loudly chanting Martin to the point that the people who would normally say Skinner actually didn't say anything. They didn't sort of carry it on with Skinner. I mean, what do you think of Martin Howe at the moment? Because I do think I said to my friend when it was there yesterday, you can pick up the other points as well. Like, if you didn't know, say you sort of just knew the Reds are playing the Blues and you didn't really know much, and they said, right, okay, you just point out who's the Man United manager and who's the assistant, you'd say that Martin Howe's the manager because he's the one who's out in the box, in the technical area. He's the one who's talking to the players a lot more, and Skinner's pretty chilled out and kind of sat back. And actually, Emma Hayes is a bit like Martin Howe as well. But I mean, what's your view on it?
Yeah. I'll just touch on the team just for another second. I think as well, for when I looked at the team sheet, I was surprised that Leon wasn't on the bench.
Yeah.
But like Andy was saying, like when we see the team sheets, we always wonder which wingers he's picked. Is it going to be Leah and Paris or Leah and Lucia? Or Leon, is it who's it going to be? And I think that's always the one that we're always like thinking what wingers is Mark going with today, because we're always certain on who the defence is, who Hayley and Katie always going to be Tuna and Russo. It's and Leah. It's just who's on the right wing that we wonder who it's going to be. But yeah, I think the team sheet. I thought Paris would play, but it could have been Lucia. It could have been any.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of how I think Martin Ho is as an assistant, I think he's good. I think he's got a good reputation with the players. He's got a good relationship with the players.
You think he's more like the manager than Mark? Don't worry, you're not hurting his feelings. He's not watching, and he earns a lot more than both of us, so I'm sure he doesn't care.
I think for me, Martin is acting more as a manager, by being out on the sideline, like being out in the box. But I watch a lot of the men's games, and a lot of assistant managers are out in the box, where managers aren't, because managers are more taking notes and more looking at tactics and more look at what they can, like their cameras are sending down to them. They're more looking at it, whereas assistant coaches are more they're in the game. They're the ones that are training them. So Martin Ho, Ian Wilcock, Charlotte Healer, them three are more in the game than Mark is. In terms, Mark's there to manage. He's there to pick the team. He's there to do the tactics and stuff like that. But whereas Martin Ho and Ian Wilcock, they're there to coach. They're there to get the set pieces right, get the formation right. They're there really for the players, in my eyes. And I think having Martin on in the box in the technical area more than Mark, I think he's good because he is a lot more direct. And we see it at LSV. When we have corners or when we have any set pieces, Ian Wilcock is always out in that technical area because he's a set piece person. He's the one that does the set pieces. And anything that goes right, if a set piece goes right, the first person they go to is Ian Wilcock because that's the way it is because of set pieces. But you always see the smile on Martin Ho's face if anything goes right, if any of the passing or the technical areas go right. So yeah, I think he is more of a manager for me, or he's acting more of a manager. And yeah, I think he's never been a manager. I don't think.
No.
But he has that way that you can think it is him over Mark.
Before anybody thinks that I'm a massive fan, Martin Ho's blocked me on Twitter. So I'm not like. Now, in my defense, it was because a troll had quoted my slightly critical but very specific to the game tweet, and he blocked both of us. He kind of had a bit of a rough night and blocked a lot of people tonight. But, so I'm not like doing what I say Skinner go, ooh, Martin, come here. I'm not doing that at all because he's blocked me on Twitter.
But yeah, I think for me, Martin's more of a, like I said, more of a manager. He gets on with a lot of the players. We don't know what happens behind closed doors, what happens at Carrington, what happens in the meetings. We don't know any of that. And we know that certain players aren't getting game time. We know that. And that is down to Mark and Martin. It is down to both. Because I don't think it's just Mark that picks the team. I do think Martin has that influence on the team sheets. And we can't say it's down to Mark for the team sheets. It's down to the whole of the staff for it. And I think Mark will probably put his favourites in, like Zellum, like Russo, like Turner, like Toon. And then maybe Martin will be like, right, Leah's good for this game with Paris. And then let's do the same back four, Mary and Lad. Bench, let's take off Tunkara, keep Mannion and 4 because it's Chelsea. We might need to go to a 5 at the back, or if anyone gets injured, a defender's better, and take off Leon because we've got Martha Thomas converted to a winger instead of as a striker, which is annoying me at the minute. Martha Thomas shouldn't be a winger when we have wingers on the bench.
Got a lot of wingers. You've got more wingers than your local Buffalo wing joint, to be honest.
Exactly. And for me, Martha Thomas needs to be forward now. She needs to be our striker because we don't have any more. We only have Rachel Williams and Russo. And we can say we have Martha Thomas as a winger, as a forward, but she's playing as wing. When is she going to be a forward? That will be in the FA Cup or in a Conti Cup. That is when she is.
I'm gonna push you, and I agree with the point you're making because you did miss the other side of my question, and I'm not asking you to agree with me or disagree with me because I actually don't know where I sit on this, but I miss, about the fact that a significant part of the fan base pretty much hates Skinner, and we are very much disunited. And it does get. I know you haven't been able to go to as many games this year because of work and stuff, and we've missed you there.
Yep.
it does give a different dimension to being on the sideline, being in the crowd.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how it's going to change. I think partly, irrespective of the good points that we've discussed about the fact that he's making shit subs and, he's pretty much a one-trick pony, and, he never changes from 4-2-3-1, though, as you pointed out, he did a little bit for that game towards the end, changed the formation. I think he needs to go because I think under Skinner, it's we're just not going to have a fan base that likes him. It's really weird. Like I was surprised by my current old boss, who was like, "What do you mean you don't like him?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can't stand him," and he's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just can't." It's become so ingrained. Yeah. I mean, what's your thoughts considering that?
For me, at this, I always say,
you make me a better person. You do. We do.
But I always say, follow the manager until the end of the season and see where we get to. And I've now been to games where I'm getting frustrated with Mark.
That's impressive.
You know how much it takes for me to get frustrated with someone.
Yeah.
It's for me, I think now it's got to a point where if we don't get Champions League, he has to go. He has to go, because if he doesn't go, a lot of people will either not go to the matches because Skinner's still there. 2, we're going to lose a lot of players. We're going to lose the likes of Russo. We're going to lose the likes of Honor and Earps.
Yeah.
And players like that. We're going to lose them. And for me, I think if we do get Champions League, give him the option. Give him the option. Because he's got us to the Champions League. And that deserves it. In my eyes, it deserves it. But if he can't get us to that, if he can't get us into Champions League after how well we've played this season because of stupid draws or stupid losses, then for me, he has to go. And I'm seeing from both sides, from where I was at the start of the season in the middle, like up to Christmas. I was like, follow the manager, keep behind him, stick behind him. He's having a rough patch. He's got too many good players he's got to pick from. He can't pick all of them. It's only 5 subs that he can change. Think about it. If it was only 3 subs that he could change, if it went back to the now, like the old days where it was only 3 subs a game, and it's now 5. Think of like how frustrated you'd be on which 3 you'd have to pick. And for me, I was thinking like that up until I think it was about 4 or 5 games ago, where I was thinking, Mark, you need to make these subs early. Why you keep picking this player? Why are you not giving her a rest? Why are you not playing these players? And for me, it's now getting to that point that we can predict the starting 11. We're getting to that stage. We can predict the starting 11, and the only player that we need to change is whoever's on the wing, apart from Leah. It's either going to be Lucia or Nikita. It's either going to be them 2. And sometimes it might even surprise us and it'd be Martha Thomas on the bench, on the pitch.
Martha Harris would be quite a surprise, but yeah, I know what you mean.
But Martha Thomas, it might even, was that that was home game, wasn't it, when Martha Thomas started? And it was like, so you're going from Martha Thomas to Nikita to Lucia, not even starting Leon. So it's like, it's getting to that point where it's frustrating now, and it's worrying because you're not starting an Olympic gold medalist. You're not starting a player who can frustrate opposition, who can run riot at matches, who can run riot at games. And it's annoying the fan base, because a lot of people like Leon. She's a good player. She's a fantastic player, to be fair, and she deserves to be in the squad. And for me, I don't think I'd blame her if she wanted to leave, if Skinner stayed.
Yeah,
I would blame her. But I think if we got Champions League, I think we would stay. I think she would stay. I think a lot of players would. It's just what happens with the players that we've got out on loan in Ivana, in Cara, in Grace, in Emily Ramsey. It's them players, because I think we are going to lose a few. Kirsty Hansen, again, I think we're going to. There's a few that we're going to lose, and I think Kirsty Hansen is proving herself right now at Villa. She's scoring goals. She's crossing. She's doing stuff. But yeah, I think there is rumours that she's going. We'll have to wait, obviously, till summer to see what happens. But it's one of them that it's going to be hard to see what happens with wingers, with keepers, because again, Emily Ramsey, what do you do? Because she's getting first team games now at Everton. Obviously, part that she's injured at the minute, but she was getting first team games. Does she come back and be second best to Mary? Be third best? It's them kind of ways that we've now got to look at, and it's just like for us to see fan base and to see players that aren't happy and frustrated. It means it's hard to see, and especially with a 1-0, 2-0 loss, it's frustrating. It really is. But we've just got to, like I always say, stick behind the team until the end of the season, and then go again next season. See what happens. See what happens with Holly and the management, and what contracts get renewed and who we bring in. But that's just
one of the things that a friend of mine yesterday said, and because she worked it out, in order for us to not finish fourth, and you're thinking, what do you mean? We're flying high, we're second. The table's quite interesting at the minute, and this is another great footballing brain like yourself. If you assume that Arsenal, Chelsea, and Man City beat all the people that we think they're going to beat, so ignoring them playing each other, beat all the other non-top 3 teams, and if you assume that we're going to win all the games that we have, again, if you take away the Arsenal game and the City game that we've got coming up, we need to take points off Arsenal and City.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't do that, we'll finish fourth. And that's apparently someone worked it out yesterday. So just run that by again if people are struggling, because I kind of lost my train of thought there. So basically, if you assume that Chelsea, Arsenal, and Man City beat everybody below them that they've got left to play for the season, and then take points off each other, but generally just assume that, and you assume we do the same, we need to at least draw or win against Arsenal and City to not be fourth. It's kind of scary, isn't it? Because it feels like a couple of weeks ago we were in a totally different position.
Yeah, it's scary when you put it in that way, and I think we're gonna. I think for me, we'll beat the other players. It's just we'll beat the other teams. I think it's just Arsenal and City who are going to be the teams that we're going to have to get playing at. We're going to
take points off. Basically, mathematically, we have to take points off.
Have to take the points off, even if it's a draw against them both. We have took 2 points off them, and that's what matters. Again, goal difference, that counts. Score goals. Don't let many in. We've got the most in the league at this minute in time, and we have to score. We have to, even if we can keep scoring 3-4 goals in a game, or at least being like we're only losing by 1-0 like we did at Chelsea, and not 2-3, not 6-1 like we did last season. That's okay, because we're not losing a lot. We're not losing a lot on goal difference. So we need, like, if we think Liverpool is our game and our last game of the season on a Saturday at 3:00 because it's been moved now, because the men's are doing the Sunday, we're having the Saturday, and rumours maybe might start going around, but Liverpool play away again at Southampton at the end of the season. There is a possibility that our will be at Anfield. If we get Champions League at Anfield, that is massive for us. But we technically want it before then. We want that confirmed before then. So we want City and Arsenal to both drop points in these next coming games. And we've got to think Arsenal and Chelsea both have Champions League games coming up. So they're going to be pressured. Chelsea have FA Cup games coming up. City, FA Cup. United, FA Cup. That's where it's going to be the tense parts, because we'll touch on the FA Cup in a minute, but we've not got many games left like Chelsea and Arsenal, because of they've got these extra games coming up, these extra 2 games in the Champions League coming up, and Chelsea have a game in hand as well on us all. So Chelsea's still got 3 games plus all the leagues. Arsenal have 2 games plus the league matches. So it's one of them that if we don't take points off when we need to take points off these teams, it's only going to be our fault that we get 4th.
And if we get 4th, we're screwed, because we're going to lose so many big players. That's the thing.
We've just got to hope that we're not going to lose the players. We've just got to hope that. We've got to hope that they're going to stick with us and get to that place that we need to be. And I think for us, I don't think we can lose all players. I don't think we can lose all the big ones. I think we can probably lose 1 or 2. I don't think we'll lose all of them. But it depends on what they get offered, what our contract offers are, what contract offers they get receiving from other teams. But it's one of them that it's hard to see at the minute. We can say we've got 3rd. We've at least got 3rd at the minute, because Arsenal aren't playing their best. They've got Beth Mead out, they've got Viv out. But we need to take points off them. City, Bunny Shaw is by far the best striker in this league at the minute, in my eyes. In my eyes, Bunny Shaw is probably one of the best. But we need to take points off him. And then we have West Ham, Brighton, Liverpool. Who am I missing?
I think there really isn't that many league games left. Because
Villa again.
Yeah.
So we've got West Ham next weekend at Old Trafford. Brighton the following week. Then I think it's international break. Then we have FA Cup semi-final. And then we have Arsenal on the 23rd, Villa on the 29th, I think it is. And then we lead that into Tottenham, City and Liverpool finishing the season off. So we've got to take points off every single one of them. We have to. And if we can hopefully guarantee our Champions League spot if we can get maximum points at every game. But I'll call it 3 teams. The main 2-3 teams that we have to take points off is Arsenal, City, and now managerless Tottenham. Because Ryan Skinner has been sacked today from Tottenham.
Yeah,
because of the lack of winning games. I don't know. It's one of them.
Yeah, no, it has. I agree. It's very good points that you were making there. Obviously, I put some Zalem ones there as well. It was funny because, again, obviously, I can't name them, but there was actually quite a lot of family at the away side. And so we had Russo's family. We're not a million miles away from where we were standing. And you also had Zalem's dad was there as well. And I didn't realise because, as I said, I was a bit further down. But toward the end of the game, there were quite audibly loud comments being made. If you were in the pit like we were, and he was, get her off, get Zalem off. because I did wonder, because at the end of the game, the guy was staring into space for about 10 minutes and looked utterly miserable. And I didn't understand why, personally. And I think that's probably too far, because obviously family is family, isn't it? But it's just a difficult one with Zelen, because like with Skinner, I think because of the way a lot of criticism is shut down by the pro Skinner side of the fan base, you either have to think she's God's gift to women's football, or you can't have an opinion and can't say anything. She's not Alexia Putellas, but she's also not terrible. She's clearly improved because Serena's played her more in England, but she also does silly mistakes yesterday. One of them, as I said, nearly gave Chelsea a second goal. And again, I think she has to kind of move on, because ultimately, once Skinner goes, which he will go eventually, the guy's not going to be there forever, then she's not really that well supported. A little bit more, to be fair, because she's a player. But it is a very, very weird situation at the minute. And, a lot of existing women's football fans might say, well, United are entitled. They're bringing in like the men's game swagger, no one likes us and we don't care, kind of, hated, adored, never ignored kind of scenario. And maybe there's an element of that. But I think we do push. I think probably one of the reasons why we've done so well where we are so far is that we do have a fan base that pushes the manager hard, that pushes the club hard. We've said numerous times before on different pods that United wouldn't have known that when they played Reading in the first season of the Championship, they were going to get nearly 5,000 people. I know it dropped down for a long time. They looked out massively for a Barmy Army. They looked out completely. One of our younger fans, there was yesterday, was actually getting profiled by the BBC, and they got a taxi to her house and they followed her going to the bus and stuff like that. And part of the game, she actually had a cameraman in the pit with us. It was like literally next to her nose. He wasn't part of the broadcast. He was obviously for this thing, and he was literally there. And she's like shouting, doing all the things that she does, typically smash him, which will tell Chloe who I mean there. And she's got this guy like literally right in front of her with a handheld camera, it's a proper camera, and like earphones on and like a press thing, and he's literally for the whole game like 4 inches away from the face while she's like doing her thing. So I'll be interested to see when that comes out. I believe it's a BBC, so it'll probably be next game, maybe for the build up for Lewis. Maybe if I think now the Gary Lineker thing's been resolved. But United wouldn't have expected that. But the other side of that is we've got a very demanding fan base, and I would say the greatest fan base, obviously being biased, but also because I would say nobody. You talk about the ultras in Europe, the nutters that set off flares and stuff like that. We don't do that, but I would say nobody sees women's football United as like childcare. Everybody treats it as a football game and as a trial, and it is very special. And I don't know what's going to end up with Zalem in the end. Hopefully she'll win us around, but there are certain things that I always struggle with.
Yeah, I think for us, to see certain players have, like, we all have our favourites. All fans have their favourite players. And I think when time goes on, players make mistakes. Players keep making the mistakes. And they start getting a bad reputation, if we say it that way.
Yeah.
And I think most of the fan base started to not like Zelen when she was all pally after the defeat with City last year. When it was all handshakes, smiles, joking with Caroline Weir and Lauren Hemp and stuff like that, and it was just like it was a loss. And the rivalry between United and City, it kind of went out the window after the game. There was kind of it was all happy, laughing, and like being all friends and pals again. And I've seen it more in the men's game where it has been a lot more like that now, especially when we're against City and Liverpool, because of players that play for England and stuff like that. You're a lot paler, you're a lot more friendly. You're chatting about the upcoming international break, or you're chatting about going out on a night out probably after the game or something. And for fans to see that, it does annoy us, because it shouldn't be like that. It's rivalry. Wait until after the game. Wait until the night time. Like, don't just do it straight after the final whistle, because you shouldn't be doing it like that. And that for me, that's where I think Katie lost fans from doing that. But at the end of the day, she played with Caroline Weir at Liverpool, and they've got that connection. They have got that connection in terms of playing together. But again, it shouldn't be like that. And to see, obviously, like I was saying, we've got to play. Fans have their favourite players. They have players that they don't like and that they want out the club. And I think you get to that stage where you're thinking, whoever it is, who can play better there, who deserves to be in the team, who can help us get in the Champions League, who can help us play in the Champions League. And that's going around your head thinking, who can help us in that position when we're in the Champions League? Can that player who's there now currently play in the Champions League? But can this player play better in the Champions League? And that's what we're thinking at the minute. We're thinking of players that we want with us in the Champions League. And for me, that's where that's where we're at the minute. And we've now got to think of that. We've now got to think of, what do we want in the Champions League? We need to make good choices in terms of who we're keeping in terms of contracts and stuff. Who are we bringing in? Who are we selling on? And who's going to be our, is it 23 squad?
Yeah.
Who's going to be our 23 squad, 23 players in the squad for the season? Who's going to be them? Because we've got up-and-coming stars of the academy who deserve to play for us. But they can't, because, we do have some top players in the team. We're only allowed 8 on the subs bench. So at the minute, 2 of our players are dropping out every game. So it's seeing which players are dropping out to which players are being brought back in. So it is interesting and frustrating at the same time. And especially as a United fan, it is frustrating, because we just want what's best for the players and best for us as fans.
It's funny because Chloe's one of my best friends, and I miss her when she's not there. But I think she wouldn't have liked to have been near me for the first 2 hours after the game yesterday. So it's kind of been really nice to talk about it now, and and we've had some quite interesting discussion tonight about it all. I mean, just picking on Reese's question here. My gut feeling is we will still wobble, and I think we end up third, which is great because that gets us where we want to go. I think we'll end up third, and I think Skinner's going to have his option activated, and they're going to sell it like they did Carla Ward's option. They made it sound like a new contract. Sky Sports did the thing with the WSL Twitter thing, and I think then we got a new owner, and they're going to look at it again next year. What's your gut feeling?
As long as we finish in the top 3, I'm happy. But I think we might finish in third. But that's depending on results of games, and if results go in our way, from City and Arsenal, if they lose and drop points, then if we can keep second, even better. I think like I was saying before, I think if we get Champions League, Mark stays. Mark has his option given to him. If we don't get top 3, I think he's gone.
Yeah, well, I hope he's gone if we don't get top 3. But I have a feeling it'll be like a holding pattern. They would just shove him with another 1 year, and the fan base would be very, very rough indeed. And we've gone very long tonight as well, which is great. It shows we had a lot to talk about. We'll just briefly, and I mean briefly, touch on Lewis. We're playing obviously them in the FA Cup. One of the games I'm not actually going to by choice. I'm not working. I'll be honest about it. Simply because it's too far. It's literally miles away. If you have a look on the map, right, you might as well go France. Seriously, it's absolutely miles away. And I am working on the Monday actually, but that's kind of part of it. So I'm going to be watching that one on TV. Obviously, great chance to get into the semis and to possibly end up playing at Wembley and winning silverware, and and that's going to be interesting. I mean, Lewis, just to give a very brief overview on where they are at the minute, they are 7th out of 12 teams, and obviously in the second league, the Women's Championship. They are pretty much only 1 point ahead of Durham, 2 points ahead of Sunderland, and there's a massive drop to Coventry United because sayonara, they're going down. And the last 5 games, they've only won 1 out of the last 5 and lost the other 4. But I did also see today that they've put in an application to their county council, and they've had their capacity extended temporarily to put more seating in. So it's going to get even bigger next Sunday. So what's your thoughts? I mean, on paper, it's a slam dunk, but it's a crap pitch and it's miles away. So what do you think?
I think we're going to win. I do think we'll win. It might be like...
He's going to be happy I'm up here and not there in front of him, put it that way.
I think we'll win. But I think it's going to be, depending on the pitch, I think it's going to be like it was against Sunderland, because we're not used to them pitches.
Sunderland, in the sort of shit pitch thing, Bridgewater was a sandpit. You might as well play in your local Shore Star Centre. You're really learning nursery, right? Sunderland was essentially as straight as I am. It's that way. It was literally like that. And it was tilted at an angle, which was the weirdest thing about it. With Dripping Pan, and yes, that is the name of the stadium, the Dripping Pan. It's kind of a hybrid between the two. I think it's roughly straight, but I think it's quite bold. But then it didn't look too bad the other day, so maybe it's got a bit better. But we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think as well we should win them. We should, especially in their recent form. They've not been winning. They've only, like you said, Andy, they've only won 1 in the last 5 games. We should smash it, really. We should score more than 1. But it depends on who's starting 11 now. I'm not in work on that game, but unfortunately I can't make it for the game. I would love to have gone, but it's Mother's Day, so I'll be spending time with my mum.
Yeah, it is Mother's Day. If everyone wonders when that is, that'll be Sunday, everybody. There's a thing called a postal service. So make sure that anyone who does live away from home or not with their parents, you've got till Saturday to get your present and your card there. So there's a little public service announcement there from Chloe.
But yeah, so I'll be spending it watching Lose on the BBC on Mother's Day with my mum.
Yeah, should be great.
So,
okay, well, I think Maisie's made her appearance. She can't keep away. Completely appreciate the kind words. I mean, we're only doing what a pale comparison of what you can do, and the only way we can do it is because you've trained us how to do it, really. And it's always great to give you, when you give me the keys to your very pretty, souped up car, which is Devils United. It's running on all cylinders. It's doing great at the minute, and obviously anyone that hasn't subscribed, obviously it helps Maisie out, so feel free to like and subscribe. And she also has a membership scheme as well, which I believe, if it's not already in play, will be in play shortly. So have a look at that. And obviously we'll be back next Monday anyway. I never stick to the script, so I'll probably, well, not as a script actually, should turn the phrase, we just talk shit for an hour and 10 minutes. I probably will end up talking about it, especially if we lose, but we'll definitely probably pick up on Lewis a little bit, but it will be a West Ham preview. I'm sure Maisie in between that will be there for her men's content, which obviously I know a lot of you guys watch as well, and Chloe, you're a men's fan as well. But obviously, thanks everyone for giving us the time of day. It's been great chatting to you, Chloe, as well. Just before we go, quick score prediction on Lewis and your socials.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Andy. Maisie, thank you for letting us take over Devils United. Like Andy has touched on, subscribe, like, go and watch all the videos, do the membership because you get a fantastic Devils United badge, which is phenomenal. Like, it's brilliant. So yeah, just go and subscribe and go and get that membership, especially because Devils United is fantastic. Maisie, we missed you on here today, but like Andy touched on, we've got a preview next Monday on West Ham and a review on Lose as long as we win. I think we're going to win. I'll go bold here. 4-0.
4-0, yeah.
4-0,
I don't know if Skinner can do that anymore. I think he might pack if we had been into it. I'm thinking 3-1. And if anybody, obviously to us, and even though I don't watch the men's game, I do watch a great content guy called Alternative Commentary MUFC on Twitter, which is quite funny. And he only does his thing when United win, but he talks about having heartburn when the United men play badly. So I reckon that would be the case if they let one in. But yeah, I think 3-1 is the numbers that I'm being drawn to. But obviously, I prefer the idea of 4-0. But yeah, thanks for everyone else for tuning in. Thanks for your time as well. What was that?
My Twitter handle is Chloe Riley 14.
Oh, yeah, that too. So you can see it on the screen as well. Mine's at Jo at the minute. That may change very shortly at AJ_87. And I will see everybody next week. And you might even have Maisie there as well. Good night.
Good night, guys.
Yeah.